Hey, everybody, welcome back to Dental Unfiltered. I'm Matt Brown, and I have a super cool guest today, Jamie Marboe. We met a few weeks ago. We were in Atlanta it was Archie and Mango put on an event at Topgolf. We ended up sitting in the same little area and talking, and we really hit it off. And we started talking about a subject that is really spicy and no one wants to talk about, and it happens, and it costs both the doctor and the employee and the entire practice a lot, and it's affairs in dentistry. Jamie is a longtime coach in the space, particularly in hygiene. She really shines. Her reputation. I had never met Jamie till that night. I mentioned her name now to like five different industry leaders. All of them had awesome things to say about you. And then a couple of them, our mutual friend Kelly Schwartz, was like, the two of you talking about this subject, the two of you kind of like don't hold back. This will be an awesome podcast. And I think this needs to be talked about because it's one of the things that gets brushed under the rug in the industry. And the reality is, dentists, you can't keep your hands off, and women, you can't stop flirting. And it happens these tight places where you're working alongside each other, and there's a cost to it. And I think the cost needs to be talked about. Now, Jamie's done a bunch of research. So I'm going to hand it off to Jamie. She's got a bunch of stats that are really eye opening. And we're going to start the conversation with that. So, Jamie, just say a little bit about yourself, and then let's dig right into the numbers. So the numbers are mind blowing.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Matt, for having me. And yeah, we just hit it off, and we can't believe we know so many of the same people, and we've never personally met. But so it's great. You've got a great energy that I absolutely gravitate towards. So, yeah. So when you said I want you on my podcast, I said, "Well, tell me about this unfiltered part," and then you're just like, "Okay," and I just was like, "Okay."
Whatever the F you want to talk about, bro.
Yeah. And, and it's not, we're not talking about this to shame anyone or to say that you're bad people if this has happened or you're going through it. I think we're just trying to shed some light as to, I mean, there's many topics. I've been in dentistry since I was 17 years old. I'm a few decades into that in dentistry. So I started out as a hygiene assistant, and then I became a hygienist. I did hygiene for most of my career. And then about 17 years ago, I decided to do hygiene and start getting putting my toe in the water, big, just kind of putting it and seeing how it goes with being a consultant. I did that, and so I've been a consultant now for about 17 years, and so I've been in dentistry for my whole life, my whole adult life. I really, other than one summer selling high-end shoes, I've never done anything but dentistry. So I feel like I've seen it all to a certain extent. Um, I did have a 2-3 year stint in there where I worked for a major dental company that everyone knows. And during that time, I was actually single. I had gone through a divorce. And while I've never had an affair with a coworker, thank God, so it doesn't make me necessarily an expert on it, I've had some really close encounters and some things that have happened either as a coach or as a coworker who was and or somebody in our small town that I lived in, a prominent dentist who was with his assistant. So I've just been around it a lot, and I do see what it has caused, the pain. And a client of one of the other coaches in one of my consulting companies I worked with, and I have seen firsthand the pain that it has caused everybody. We talk about being marketing and coaches and the KOLs in dentistry, being a small percentage of people, and we all know each other. It's the same in the dental office, the dental practice.
It's a cascade of like pain and cost, right? Like it costs, especially in a small. I live in Wilmington, North Carolina, small town generally, right? And like if it happens, I mean, it's one, like, you kind of don't work for a practice, you work for a community, and like one assistant, it happens, and that practice knows, and then one assistant leaves there and goes somewhere else, and it gets talked about it. Before you know it, you're labeled that way, and so is that doc, and then it costs morale in the practice, and there's rumors, and it's just, there's behaviors that, if you're in that tight space, you can tell, right? Like, you see the flirting in the comments and the smiles and the looks. But anyway, you looked up some awesome data, and I didn't even think to do this, so you were way ahead on this than I was. So why don't you dig into some of the data, the shocking data that you found?
I was looking at it, and there was a comparison table of prevalence in the workforce as a whole. And so they talked these reports. The first one that came out was U.S. workers and HR reporting this to so several publications, and that was right around 47% admitted. So that's just who's admitted to being involved in a romance within their workplace. So we're talking not dentistry, but all people that go to work day in and day out. So that 47%, that's pretty high. And what do we know about divorce rate? It's like 50 to 52%.
It aligns.
So, and that's just the people that admitted it or went off and out. But then we go down to what has been reported. Again, you got to remember, not a lot of people. Some people take this kind of stuff to their grave, and some get caught out. It's kind of like the kissing cam at the athletic sporting event that they worked together. I don't know. Do you remember that, the kissing cam, and they got caught with their arms around each other? Okay, yeah. But in dentistry, they're reporting that it's give or take about 21%. That's pretty high. We're getting, if it's give or take, that's getting in dentistry about a fourth.
Oh yeah, a fourth. Yeah. To it, that's nuts. That's crazy.
Yep. It's sad. It's really sad. We know in general being unfaithful is not a good. It shatters everyone, but we all know that, and you and I, we've been through whatever we've been through, and we know how much that can hurt. But then you bring it to the family within the family of your home, and then you have the family within your company, within your dental practice, within your, whatever company it is that you have, and it just is devastating. What you alluded to is that it doesn't necessarily follow away; it follows you. It doesn't fall to the wayside. And one of the things that happened in my small town that I lived in most of my career, this doctor, he could not keep it. Team members, his ex-wife, she pretty much took him to the ringers.
Oh, I got some stories. Yeah, it gets bad.
And the team members, most of them jumped ship right after. They were so devastated. This poor young lady could not get a job in our town. Every wife that was married to a male dentist said absolutely not.
Yeah, because the rumors go rampant like a cancer. It spreads fast.
And next thing you know, it's not just whatever it is. You know how that grows. You know how the rumor mill can actually get even uglier. So, that's not even knowing what happened with their family. So I just know that was a very, very tough situation for everybody involved.
Yeah, I think too, it's like, I think when it's happening because of like heightened emotions and stuff, I have a saying that I say all the time, that the lowest form of intelligence is emotion, which is actually factual, right? If you think about it, the stupidest things you've ever done in life, you were emotional, right? And that's probably one of the stupidest things you can. We're drunk, which then the two collide and we get like double stupid, right? So it's like no one ever thinks about the cost, and there's some hard costs here, right? So you're a dentist, you come out of school and you have student loans and you're chipping away at them. You get married and you get a mortgage and you buy a practice, you have a practice loan, or you do a startup, and there's millions of dollars. You're gambling with millions of dollars, and then your reputation also, right? So it's like, on one side, like the rumor follows you, right? But let's say you don't get caught. Let's go with that, which is a scenario no one thinks about. Let's say you don't get caught. This staff member now, you can't fire them or get rid of them if they're doing a bad job. And now the rest of the staff sees it, that she's doing a bad job and she's protected. And now there's resentment that builds. So even if you don't get caught, there's still a bad cost in the practice, right? So even if I get away with it, you're actually not. It's going to cost you something. No matter what, if you do it, it's going to cost you something. And later on, we get further on, I have a doc that it really cost him a lot. In a different scenario no one thought about, right? That
story was like...
Dude, when I discovered this, it blew my mind. And when we talk about anything like that, we're not going to talk about locations or anything else to give away any identities. I'm going to be very vague about it. But tell me firsthand, like, you've been in dental. I'm in dental 5 years. I'm a dental baby compared to you. You've been in dental, like, you have more dental knowledge in your pinky finger than I have my body, right? So like, tell me some times when you've noticed it or you've seen it like personally, like up front and personal, like you've witnessed or been kind of like honestly like approached in a really like icky way that even made you feel bad professionally, or something you're willing to share that you've seen firsthand on the front lines.
I think that once I got into coaching, which was after I worked for a major um, dental company, I was divorced. I worked for a major dental company, and I saw how icky it was. So I decided to not talk about myself personally, especially on the road at conventions. I mean, even when I was married and went to dental conventions with my team, I saw how icky it was. Um, and I know that it affects you at work because even if it's not within the practice, like not with your doctor, your coworker, your office manager, whatever it is, if you are there as a team and something happens when you guys are traveling together as a team out with another person outside of your practice, you're then not as respected as much. And that happened in the practice that I worked in for 24 years, where we had some shenanigans going on when the team traveled. Um, but when I became working for this one company, I knew that wasn't the path I wanted to go down, even though I was single. I didn't trust that any of these other people were, just because they didn't wear a ring. And so I decided to keep my personal life personal. And I wore a ring, and I saw the ugly behavior that happened, and I knew it just made me sick to my stomach because I was actually going to these conventions as a representative for the company. And in fact, I lost a job for this company because I had stood up for something. There was another girl involved, and she didn't get let go because I found out that she was sleeping with somebody in her branch, and I wasn't. And I hadn't done anything wrong. It's just that she got protected because she was sleeping with the person who should have let her go. And I was protecting her because she was doing some shenanigans at one of our major conferences. So I could go on and on and on, but I
Yeah.
think the main thing here is that if you want to learn what not to do, go to dental conventions. you know, because it was very sad. It was very sad. And I walked away with my head held high because I knew what I was doing, and she moved up in the company.
I had an interesting. So I'll tell you the first time my eyes were opened to this in dental. I was it was probably one of my very first big dental events. And listeners, if you guys don't go to dental events, all of us that are vendors and coaches are like a traveling circus. We see each other more than we see our friends. A lot of us are on the road 2 weeks a month. We have dinners. We're at the same events. And I was just getting into the community and kind of breaking in a little bit, and people were just getting to know me. And I was lucky. A lot of leaders in the industry kind of told me what's what. Like Kelly Schwartz kind of gave me the lay of the land, like who to watch out for, that kind of stuff. And I was at a particular event, and there was a pretty attractive blonde and another leader who was an industry leader of a okay sized company. And I was talking to someone else later, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I met X person and their wife," and they were like, "Not the wife." And I was like, "Really?" They were like, "This position in the company, not the wife." And I was like, I was at this after event and definitely appeared that way based on physical behaviors and some drinking and stuff. And I don't drink at all. And I read a book, two books that in business convinced me you shouldn't drink. One was, and me and you both have a background in this religion. I'm Mormon. I know you have a background in it. One was the Mormon way of doing business, which remove the Mormon part. Really good lessons on five really good CEOs and about not drinking at company events because you start revealing things you wouldn't normally reveal. You start behaving different ways. And then the other one is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. That profiles a bunch of founders of our country, and one thing as a leader in a company you should guard against is sexual urges and these feelings because it ultimately will destroy your organization, right? And I think that's where the cost part is, right? It's like, so I told you a story, a crazy story. I had we discover at my company people embezzling all the time because our software creates a duplicate set of books you can't alter, and we found like just inconsistencies that were like alarming. And me and you have both discovered this. We understand some of the tricks that happen, and we went to this particular person who owned this organization. We said, "Hey, this person's embezzling from you," and it was about 300 grand a year. It was a significant amount. And he was like, this person was like, "I know." And we're like, "What are you going to do about it?" Like, I can't. I had an affair with her, and she's been holding over my head, and I can't do anything about it. And this individual was being held hostage. And me, I would have just owned it. I would have been like, "Yeah, I made a mistake. You know, you're taking money from my kid's my children's college fund, all this stuff, right? And you're gambling with a lot." And like, I don't like, I'm like, I work virtual. My whole team's everywhere. So I feel like our company is a little bit insulated from this. I don't witness these things because I have team members in all over the country, right? But it's like working in those close quarters. It's got to be it's got to be noticeable instantly. Like, you work in those close quarters as a coach, like, how quick do you pick up on the behaviors? Like how does it take a little while to notice, or do you're there for a little bit and you're like, "Oh, I think that's what's going on." Like, how quick do you notice the behaviors?
Well, I noticed right away because that's partly what makes me hopefully good at my job is I watch a lot of the nonverbal um, type of communication amongst the team. And I'm going to be honest, I do anonymous questionnaires. If you want to really know something that's going on, other than the doctors, because I need to know, but my team all it's a choice. They can not put their name down. And I tell them if there's anything in here you want to share with me that would help our time together with coaching and help me get your team. Because I don't just coach hygienists, I coach the team. And I'm not pro dentist, even though the practice owner is my boss too. But I'm there to get to the bottom of it. And I can't do he or she, the practice owner, any good if I let them get away with crapola and I'm trying to hold the team accountable and they don't have any respect for their owner. So that's when I can dig in deep. And this other coworker that I had that the doctor was misbehaving with an assistant, I think that what she had shared with me, I have yet to have a client that I've known of. The embezzlement part, that's different, but that's not what the topic's about. But she just said that it really did cost, it almost cost him, he had, his partnership was with 3 doctors total, including him. And we're talking, $8 million practice. And it ripped the team apart. So I don't see it per se in the office with my clients so much as I would say the biggest place was in the practice I worked in for 24 years. But I also would say that being a part of a dental company, a big one,
Yeah.
that's where I saw it the most. I saw it a lot, when you're going to these conventions and alcohol always plays a big role in it. It always does. And I mean, I've gotten to a point where I've taken somebody home, dragged them by the earlobe basically and said, "Nope, I know your wife and I'm not going to stay here." So I got a
Man, you're a good friend.
taxi. Well, I knew that wasn't the situation that this person wanted to be in, and I knew that they would regret it. And I knew that if I didn't at least give him a chance to do the right thing and get in that Uber, whatever it is I got at the time, I knew that I wouldn't be able to forgive myself either. So I would hope somebody would do that to me if I was crossing the boundaries, and they
Yeah.
knew my
Someone looking
personal
out for
life.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
looking out for you.
yeah, it's kind of like taking the keys from a drunk driver, right? We would all, if something ever happened, and you know that people don't make great decisions when they've been drinking. So, anyways, yeah. So, I mean, I've come in close proximity to some things like that, and everyone's human. Everyone has instincts. Everybody has, these
The natural
desires.
urges. Yeah, the natural urges.
You
They're
know,
natural.
yeah. And I think that you're very smart in not drinking, when you're working and when you're going to, you don't drink anyways, but I mean,
Yeah,
just
I'll
the
drink it all.
fact that you don't, I think that if more people practice that, including myself, I think that everything I've ever regretted in my life is when I was drinking too much. I mean, I admit that all the time. Now, I've not had an affair with somebody in the workplace, but I'm just saying that I understand how it happens. And I think if more people were responsible and they really did care about that person and their family at home, they would maybe at least give that person a chance to jump in the Uber or cab with them and walk away from that situation.
And earlier you said you're not pro dentist. I think you're like me. You're pro team.
Absolutely, 100%.
When I work in the practice, I have to be clear with the dentist that I have to be loyal to the entire team to make his organization better. I had a dentist, this is a little bit off subject, but on the accountability side, it is on subject. I had a dentist that couldn't make it to work on time, could not make it to morning huddle. And I have a talk with him, like, how can you expect your team to ever take you seriously if you can't even make it to morning huddle, right? Like, how can anyone take you seriously? You can't get to work on time and you're the leader. And where that really leads into too is like, if listen, people are gonna pick up on it. We spend more time with our coworkers than we do at home, right? Like you spend more time at work than at home. So if you don't think that people are picking up on it, and the moment they do, they're not taking you or that person seriously, whether they say anything or not, the level of respect lost is pretty high. And then you have staff members that are probably amazing staff members, amazing hygienists, amazing assistants, which in today's marketplace, we would both agree is very hard to find right now. It's probably the biggest challenge is hiring, and you're rolling the dice on like keeping that talented individual.
Well, I think that that's where integrity really does shine its light on you. Whether we're talking never coming on time to a morning huddle or having an affair with somebody at work, yeah, they're different levels. We're not comparing apples to apples, but what we are comparing it to is do what I say, not what I do. And that comes true to, just a personal story. And both my parents are gone. And so I'm not too worried about this, but my father, you mentioned that we were raised a certain religion, both of us. And, I followed the rules. I followed the rules that were given to me that I was told I needed to follow. And I went off to dental hygiene school and found out from my mother that my dad had been having an affair with our down the street neighbor. Talk about crushing me and shattering that integrity, that love, that respect, everything that I believed my father to be and everything he wanted me to be. And so I just think that the fish rots from the head. And if you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing within the confines of your home and your practice, you're going to have a hard time keeping good, strong team members. You will.
I think it shatters a character foundation, right? So my parents, my stepfather is still alive. I lost both my parents. And similar scenario, my dad was a serial cheater. Secretary, he upgraded women every 10 years. It was like he traded them in like cars. My dad was a narcissist. He was horrible. And it does, my parents got divorced when I was very young. And it eliminates a character foundation of these people whose character should impact your character. And when that foundation is removed, you're kind of like, whoa, wait a minute. And then for me at least, it created a paranoia of does just everyone cheat, right? And then I think in this scenario where the percentage is so high, like you said, 21% almost, I think it would create I think at the first time you worked in a practice and there was infidelity, I think it would be something you would be paranoid about at your next 3 or 4 jobs or rest of your jobs. Like you'd be looking for, like, is it happening? Like, who is it? You know what I mean? Like, does it create a character foundation problem that you have with the dental profession overall, not even individuals, but does it create a problem where you find a character foundation problem with the profession?
Yeah, you do. And well, I got some more stats for you.
Go for it. Yeah, dig into them, bro.
Okay, here we go, bro. 95% of the people that have reported that they have had a romantic affair with their doctor on this report, and this was in 2025, 95% are women. And out of the the average age is 30, and they're usually assistants.
Okay, close quarters, handing off stuff, flipping rooms. Hygienist, you're kind of in your own space down the hall where the dentist comes in for 5 seconds, does a hygiene check or a minute or two. but the DAs are like over here in and out of the rooms with them, working intimately, handing things off. Makes sense. Where I think 30 makes sense, and you know more than I do, is if you were married, 30 might be that 10-year mark where everyone talks about the 10-year mark of your marriage where things get hard. I think I read something about the 10-year mark is when infidelity happens. That ends up being the 30s.
Yeah,
That lines up again.
it does. It really does. And then one of the other stats that I found very interesting when I did my research is that the other thing that adds to that, this isn't a stat, the other thing that adds to that is dentists are usually taking their assistants to CE events out of town because they're working on things for around
I've
that.
always thought that was high probability of a problem. Always thought that.
Yeah, and the hygienists are usually sent, not always, usually sent on their own with the other hygienists in their practice. Sometimes it's
Oh,
office managers. The next one is the office managers or front business team if they're trying to work on something. But again, it's predominantly 95% of the of all of the affairs or shenanigans that happen in dental space. 95% are assistants. And then it said in here that 40% experienced workplace sexual harassment from the employer or
pressure.
supervisors during a 2 year window. 40% sexual harassment.
That's nuts.
I
Yeah,
know.
I think where this is really disrespectful, I think the real victim is the support staff, um, because they're not the authority figure. I think this is going to sound extreme. I think it's similar to like I don't know a coach doing the wrong thing with a senior high school student or something like that because you're an authority figure or a teacher. I think people that happens to might take that offensively. I apologize. I'm just trying to highlight like leadership, person of authority versus subordinate. I think there's a lot of faith put there, and then that faith becomes that trust and faith becomes kind of exploited, and I could see how it is assistance in that bracket, and I could definitely see how hygienist is much lower because you are kind of siloed and segregated. You guys are going to different CEs because your CE is completely different. You're in your own rooms. You are a practitioner in the practice. You're your own practitioner. You kind of have your own little baby practice, your own little practice inside that room, right? You have your patients that have rapport with you, and the docs get pissed off when I say this. Docs are kind of guests in your space when they come in for hygiene check a little bit, right? It's all their space, but they're coming into a space where it's they come in as the guest in the hygiene check to do stuff, where the assistant comes into their space as the guest and they're the practitioner, right? And I think the window is the guest in that space is there prolonged. The guest in your space is very narrow, and it's not there prolonged, right? So that all checks out pretty good. I think right now some dental spouses are listening to this and just get more paranoid and get nightmares. So I apologize if you're a dental spouse listening to this. I'm sorry that the reality is here.
And that's not what we're trying to do. We're not trying to do that though.
No, we're just trying to highlight the facts of it and the cost, right? So here's a question, right? So you're the one that creates the infraction and the infidelity. How do you feel about yourself afterwards? How much self respect do you lose? How much of you is eroded? You know what I mean? Like both parties. And what is the erosion like? So I think the erosion for the assistant and the team member is different than the erosion for the leader because the leader has some kind of ego about it. I think possibly. So like the next day, like how do you feel about yourself? Think about that. Or when you go home to your spouse, how do you feel?
This is something you're probably going to think is horrible for me to say. And if we have to cut this part out, you promise you'll cut it out.
No, we don't cut anything out. You're good, and I won't judge you. And that's why it's dental unfiltered, and that's why people like listen.
It's not judging me, it's the statement I'm going to say. And I know you're going to get some hate mail from this, but I
I
honestly,
get hate mail all the time, buddy.
while infidelity is something that's top three probably of things that you could do that are wrong, I really believe there's other things above infidelity.
Oh yeah,
But I think that to your point of what you were bringing up, and just about for me, I would never want to look in the mirror or have to answer to my kids or,
yes,
because it's something that I've seen happen because of my own experiences, my father, my mom, whatever
yeah, yeah,
without
me
going
too.
into grave detail. Um, it's not, it's not easy. And to regain any trust back is very, very hard, no matter if you apologize, no matter if you go to counseling, and whether or not your partner decides to stay or leave. I just think that the whole basis of it is there are some other things that I consider worse, like
Yeah.
abuse
Yeah.
and things like that. But with that being said, I think we, no matter what our infractions or our shortcomings are, if we can't look ourselves in the mirror or look at our kids in the mirror, I remember asking somebody not too long ago that had a 12-year-old daughter at the time. And I said in private, I said, would you want your daughter to marry a man just like you? And he started crying. He said, no.
Nope.
And I think that that's sort of, while this person has some great attributes, there's a lot of things that was causing this 12-year-old daughter to be around and to be subjected to and to see. And if you can't answer yes to that, that's how you'd want your kids to grow up and marry, then I think you got your answer. You need to shape up. And there is forgiveness. Kids want to love their parents forever, but you've got to, I think anyway, so getting into a
Yeah.
whole nother lane.
No, no, I don't think it's another lane. I think that one, if you don't think your kids figure it out, you're stupid. My dad was having an affair with his secretary. She was a 6 foot tall blonde. She ended up becoming a big part of my life later on in life. My parents got divorced. She was around a lot, and she was a great person. I mean, we were really close. She was amazing. But I remember being like 8 years old, going to my dad's office, and just, I think my dad was an idiot. He was, and he just acted a certain way around her that just seemed like he acted. It just didn't seem right to me. And if you think your kids don't figure it out, you're stupid. I mean, like, your kids are going to figure it out, especially in the tween ages, like 10 to 15. Like, they're not stupid. They're going to figure it out. Or like, I had a friend of mine who picked up his mom's phone and like went to get something, and there were some pictures that were odd that he knew didn't get sent to his dad, right? And they figure out the stuff out. Like, you can't hide it. It's too emotionally charged, and it's too in your face eventually to hide it, and eventually you do get caught. Like, you definitely do. And I think the cost that we're gambling with is you're gambling with your profession. You're gambling with two families on both sides. You're gambling probably with like 4 to 8 children's lives that you're going to impact, right? Like, there's a lot of cost that you have to look at. And then, like you said, can you look yourself in the mirror and say afterwards, like, am I the best version of myself? And would I want my children to marry someone like me? I think that's a really good point you made. I never thought about that. Like, I'm a father of two daughters. I have two daughters and a son. And if someone posed that question to me afterwards, I would feel really bad for both my daughters. And going along with that crazy military story, I had a buddy of mine who was Mormon, and I come from the special operations community. I like to say every time, I was not a Navy SEAL, I was not a Ranger, I was not a Green Beret. Integrity is important to me. I was support staff, but I spent a lot of time with those guys. And my friend had checked into a new team, and they covered his locker with pornography. And he took it down, and he wasn't blown away by it. But they were trying to push him to see what his limits were and see how he'd handle it, because they knew it was offensive. And they approached him and said, "No, why didn't that bother you?" He's, "Well, I felt bad for you guys." And he's, "Why?" It's because every one of those women was somebody's daughter or wife or somebody important. And I think you brought up a really good point. I think no one thinks about that selfishly.
I've grown into this person and this mindset. I haven't always been, you know, what I feel like I am today, and I'm really quite proud of it. And I think that part of these questions are questions I've had to ask myself. And I think that that's probably the bigger picture here for me, is that if my kids were listening to this, who are adults now, and what would they say about, this topic? And I know that there would be some mixed emotions for my kids, to be honest. But I'm not the same person. I've got different circumstances. I'm married to a wonderful man. I couldn't even imagine doing those things. And I know we're not marriage counselors. We're not relationship counselors. We're just two people, two buddies sitting down talking about something in a profession that we both share a similar space in. And so the other thing that I realized you made me think of, that I had to ask myself, that now if I get the chance to have, and this was a really close person that I asked this to. I don't just go walking down the street and I don't like how somebody's behaving and ask them that question. This was a very deep, intimate conversation.
Somebody with a lot of life equity with they built up over time. Yeah.
That's not going to go away.
Yeah, it's forever.
I mean, it's a forever relationship in my mind. And anyways, there's something else that I ask them every once in a while. I'll ask, and I can't remember what it was. But anyways, but so yeah, it's okay. No, but like I said, it's I'm definitely I could probably have coworkers who would listen to this and say, well, Jamie, it's easy for you to say now, but whatever it might be. I don't think that anyone would say that the Jamie they've known for 20 years now that they would, have a problem with. But I think my point, what I was going to say is that, there's always a reset button that we can push.
Yeah, there's always a way back.
Yeah, you can't take away necessarily what you did or said. You can't necessarily, oh, well, I wish I would have done this or, whatever it might have been. But I do think that how we show up, how we look at ourselves in the mirror, how we grow from any of these tough situations and conversations that we have and talking and being open about them. I mean, I have grown to be an open book. And if somebody wants to come to me one-on-one and ask me questions, I am not going to give them a BS answer. I'm going to give them the answer that they want, that I know to be true. And so, I think sometimes we talk about things on podcasts that, might stir some emotions and feelings and ruffle feathers. But I think that if we don't start bringing these things up and these truths to light, how good are we?
Well, what if just talking about it in the community brought the rate from 21% to 17%? How many lives would it keep better? Or how many assistants' careers wouldn't be derailed? How many doctors, businesses, and families wouldn't be gambled with? I mean, there's a lot. I think there's a lot of things. I think me and you both can say there's a lot of things in dental people just don't want to say and address. Dental's a very professional, proper profession, and I love everything dental. My business partner a couple years ago said to me, "Man, you've really fallen in love with dental." I was like, "No, I haven't." And I started thinking about it. I was like, "I have fallen in love with dental. I've fallen in love with dentists. I've fallen in love with a team. Me and you talked. I am a giant champion of you awesome female dental warriors that are on the front lines, holding people's hands, calling in medical pre-auths. I have a deep appreciation for how tough those women's jobs are, and men. There's men and women doing those jobs, and those jobs, front desk to assistant, jobs suck, okay, and work so hard. And I think it's something where if people are willing to talk about it, maybe there's a chance we can bring down the percentage a little bit. And some people from listening to this might avoid that heartache. Maybe some doc's driving in his car right now and he was flirting today. And in the back of his mind, he's like, I could do it once, no big deal. And maybe he'll listen to this and he'll be like, you know what? Maybe I won't. And if that one person that happens for, it was worth the conversation, right?
Right. And we aren't doing this to get any kudos or somebody calling up and saying, hey, you saved my marriage. But I think you're right. I love what you just said, because maybe they have tickets with their assistant to go to Las Vegas for some big dental convention and they've been flirting and they haven't crossed the line yet. It just may be that they say, you know what? I listened to this podcast and I really think we need to think twice about this. And in fact, I'm going to take the high road and say, we're not going to go in that direction, or I'm not going, or we need to bring your husband, wife here too. That's the other thing that I do, is that I meet with all my clients for dinner after the first day of training, because I want to kind of do some behind the scenes talking. But I always have them bring either their wife or their office manager. Somebody has to be with us.
Yep. It's funny. The team. So actually, my company has a lot of women in it, and they're all like, I love my team. I have this amazing team. I have no problem children. They're all great. Me and my partner are always thankful for everyone. Our leadership has a lot of amazing women. Our our COO is a strong, amazing woman. I've watched her get to grow, and my team I travel with is primarily male, but we're both around the opposite sex when we travel in the other forms of the other companies, right? And my practice is when I get back to my hotel room at night, I FaceTime my wife. She knows exactly where I'm at, what I'm doing. I try not to intimately travel with a woman. Like I don't get on an airplane, sit next to them. You know what I mean? I try not to do those things. We don't get in cars alone with the opposite sex. We don't there's things we just don't do. My wife even, like, if a pair of guys come into the house, she won't do it unless I'm in the house, right? So, and it's not that you don't trust each other. It's just, it's a security thing. It's like, I don't want the
Well, it is. It's
opportunity.
a safety thing too.
It's a
Yeah.
safety thing, right? It's about being safe. Like you said
Yeah.
before, the harassment thing, right? Like, if you're traveling
Yeah.
alone with your boss, you just said 41%, right? For harassment. So you're opening up a 41% chance you're going to get
Yeah.
harassed by being alone with your boss of the opposite sex.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's like, that alone
Or
is a
as the
reason not to do it.
boss, even if you didn't, you got to protect yourself because there are some bad people out there that'll accuse you of something you didn't do, something that you felt was innocent. Like I teach. One of the things I coach on is the 5 languages of appreciation in the workspace,
Oh,
and
I've never heard this
the
before.
five.
Later, I would
So
love to
there's
hear
the
that at some
five.
point.
Yeah, the 5 languages of love. This
Yeah.
is the five. The same people wrote it, but it's 5 languages of appreciation in the workplace. And they talk about because touch is in the 5 languages of love. Touch is one of the 5 languages of love. So when they wrote this book, they were very careful in saying on this section that there's a lot of other ways that you can and appropriate and inappropriate times to do certain things that when it comes to touch. And so, like, you can do a high five, you can do a fist bump, you can do an elbow bump.
Okay, I was going to ask
But
that.
if you're a female worker just lost a family member and she's bawling, and the team's huddled around her, giving her hugs. Yeah, we can't get too crazy about it, but that's an appropriate time to do it. So I've appreciated that book because it's really about appreciation. But when it came to that, I thought, I wonder how they're going to do this. How are they going to go around the touch part of it? And they handled it very well in the book.
I love the high five. So I'm glad high fives are in there because I love the high five. When I come to practices to coach in person, I'm a little bit over the top and I high five everybody. Like, I'll do cheesy stuff. Like, in the very beginning, have everyone put their hands in and scream the name of the practice and get everyone pumped up. And they're like, the guy with one leg who's bald's a weirdo. But I'm even guilty of this. Like, I've said things I thought were completely benign, and then had coworkers be like, "I didn't think that was benign." And I'm like, "Well," and I think the key is when you're a leader, is to be like, "I'm so sorry. Can you explain so I understand so it doesn't happen again?" I think too many leaders' egos get into it and they get defensive. And I think when you're defensive, it makes it worse. I think if you accept it and say, "I am sorry and I didn't mean it that way," and you allow it to be explained, you understand it. One, you can prevent it, and two, that person feels heard.
Help me be better. Help me not do this again. Yeah, help me. And nobody's going to fault you for apologizing and say, help me grow better. That's one of my topics in my diversity podcast, because I have a podcast too, The Heart of Dentistry. And that's one of the things that when I talk about cultural diversity and inclusion in the workspace, is like how, one person may like to be referred to their race as African American, and somebody else might want to be referred to, they're fine with being called Black. So have those conversations. And I think that when it comes to uh, any sexual connotations in the workplace, and I think this is a good thing to kind of wrap this up on, is that you need to have those conversations, especially if you're a male practice owner. And there's even things about nothing to do with the practice, but the practice owner goes through a divorce. I mean, you need to protect yourself. You need to have it in writing. You need to have those conversations with your team about what's appropriate and what's not. I had some team members that had a very beautiful, a client that had very beautiful team members, and they would get asked all the time for their phone number from patients. And so they had actually put in their operatories a laminated thing that said, we do not share or exchange personal information with our team members and patients, so please do not ask. Because so you have to have these in your HR book. You have to have a section on what your rules are there. We do not date our patients, or we do not date our coworkers, or we do not have relationships with whatever. But I think that the bottom line here is that you need to have those put into place, and they need to be followed and abided by. And I think the conversations is really, really important.
Yeah, sorry about dogs in the background, everybody. I guess the UPS guy must be at the front door. He's loud. He's little, but he's loud. So, Jamie, that was a great conversation we had. I think it's one that needs to be had. And I think it's one that's, for everyone listening, this was not a bash on anybody. I think this is a conversation that's not being had in dental. And I think if this even positively affects one person, it was worth whoever gets offended by it. It is something that is a problem, 21%, right? And even if that could lower a little bit, how many lives and jobs could be not destroyed negatively and could be still go on in a positive manner? I think one key point you said earlier that didn't get touched on, and we're going to wrap this up, is there's always a way back, right? If you own it, look for self-improvement, there's always a way back. Mistakes happen. Humans are the furthest thing from perfect. We're pretty jacked up, right? Humans are pretty,
Yeah.
like, we make mistakes, bro. It is the way it is. But I
Perfectly
think there are,
imperfect, as they say.
yeah, we are perfectly imperfect, but I think there's some things said that, like, not being alone, being respectful, watching the drinking in professional environments, watching your travel habits. I think if you had, I think, Jamie, something you could do. You're more of a coach than I am. I think there's actually a guide that could be written of, like, these are the 10 things you could guard against to lower the probability of this. Don't
Ooh,
travel alone with the
good
individual.
idea.
Watch alcohol consumption. Watch certain conversations. Right. I think
Yep.
you could write an awesome guide for this after all your years and us having this conversation. I think that'd be a cool guide to write,
Yeah, that's
or
great.
even
We'll have
or
to,
even do a podcast of, like, how to mitigate this, because there's a
yeah,
problem, right? So what is the course
yeah,
for mitigation? Like Jamie's guide to mitigating this based on years of experience, and write an intro, and then write, like, this is the simple guide on how you mitigate this. I think a lot of dental spouses would appreciate that. I
yeah.
think that
I
there's
think you're
there's so
right.
much room for this to get improved in dental. And dental's such an
Yep.
amazingly smart, intelligent, dental affects so many lives. How many more smiles are on earth because of every dental professional? There's so
Yeah.
many happy
Well,
things it
my
does.
motto is saving lives one mouth at a time. So I guess you could say metaphorically, what does the life represent? It's a smile, it's money, it's families, it's
It's a
so
lot.
yeah, so it's
Well,
everything. Yeah,
this was so much fun. I had
it's
been
great.
looking forward to this conversation since we met, because we
Me
started talking
too.
about it and we were hanging. I think we both stopped playing golf at Top Golf. I think we both stopped completely to
Yeah,
talk about
we
this. We just
did.
started eating appetizers and hanging out and talking.
Yeah,
I think I even moved one closer to you because we were talking across people. And I think I moved over to have this conversation with you, and it was so
yeah.
exciting.
We'll have to see if
So
we can put the picture of us at Topgolf. That one picture. We had a good picture with
we did
us,
have a good
and
picture.
Mike Nelson was in the background.
Yeah, I thoroughly loved meeting you, and I didn't know how we hadn't met. Actually, so
Yes,
many mutual professional friends,
I
so
know.
it was so great. Well, so great having you on the
Yes.
show. I'm looking forward to
Thank you
being
for
on
having
yours.
me.
Yeah, it was
Yep,
awesome.
and we'll get this on my wavelengths over my all of my stuff too, and tune in to the Heart of Dentistry, where I help my guests help take the ache out and put the heart back into our profession, and that's exactly what we just discussed. So thank you for having me.
No problem. Well, everybody, me and Dr. Vallo and all the other hosts on the channel, we don't sell sponsorships. There's no way to pay to play to get on this show. This is purely for the community and the betterment of the community. The only thing we ask for in return, that all the hosts on the show really feel kind of the gratitude, and it motivates us, is please leave reviews, positive or negative. Like, subscribe, share, and just stay listening. There's no plans of this ever stopping. It's really exciting. We love doing it. Me and Dr. Vallo absolutely love doing this show. So thank you guys for tuning in, and have a great day.